The 20 millionth Bitcoin has been mined. It was mined
That's
on
right.
March 9th. So that's over 95% of Bitcoin's total supply of 21 million has now been issued, leaving just 1 million Bitcoin to be mined over the next 114 years.
So yeah, with Michael Saylor buying it up, with central banks starting to buy it up, you have to start asking yourself, where does this stuff come from to buy?
Yeah.
Right. Also, ETFs, if there's large inflows, they're required to buy. That's part of what they are. If any of these institutions, family offices, hedge funds, et cetera, want to get in the game, they have to buy it. Now, they might buy the ETF because it's easier for them to do so, but they're indirectly buying it, right? Or they're forcing purchase of it. So, like we were kind of mentioning earlier, it's like, well, if you bought it at 1,000 and you kind of mentally said, hey, when it gets to 100,000, I'll like pay off my house or something. Well, then, yeah, there's going to be some sales of what they call whales or OG types of Bitcoin people. But I mean, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot left, right? And when Satoshi kind of put this whole issuance graph, I wish I had one handy to show the Bitcoin issuance. Of course, it would show like a big arc, like a bunch gets created early and then it gets slower and slower and slower. And now we're like fighting over this last little thin slice, the last million, right? And I think to the uninitiated, someone first trying to understand Bitcoin, they might look at it and they say, well, it's over.
Yep.
It's like, I'm never going to be able to buy any because there's not going to be any left to buy, and the miners are going to not have any revenue because when a miner mines a block, they get two components. They get the block reward, which is the part that's getting smaller and smaller, and then they get fees for all the transactions they stuff into that block. And right now the fees are, I can bring up probably less than one, right? Mempool space is always a good one.
They were creeping
to go
up.
to.
They were like 2 to 3, 1, 2, 3, something like that. Sats per V byte.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just share quick just to show what people, this is always a good, dang it.
So
I have
2.
to yeah. So 1, 2, 2. Actually, it's been 2 for a while. 3, 4, 4. Oh, it spiked up a bunch. But then look, you get this. Like you get blocks that aren't even filled, right?
Yep. Those are the blocks that come quick.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's like they just the whoever mined it just doesn't want to be. I don't know what their motivation, doesn't want to be bothered with it. They changed the lower limit to be less than a sat per V byte.
Yeah.
Such that a lot of these tiny rate limited things, but all this green stuff is like blocks to be mined. So there's enough pending transactions to theoretically fill up. Gosh, what is that, about 8, 9 blocks? Well, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
41,000 unconfirmed.
Yeah. So, and this is like a pictorial of the next block theoretically getting filled. You see stuff moving around. That's stuff that maybe gets like pushed out, and new stuff comes in that's got a higher, that they're offering to pay more. So already in this next block, we can see that it's around 2 sats per V byte, but some stuff in there is still as low as 1. So, but anyway, enough of that.
Get your UTXOs consolidated. I'm sure a lot of people have already done it, but a lot of people procrastinate. So now's a good time. When the price goes back up, probably we'll see more activity on chain and the fees will be higher. I would imagine.
Well, I think too, you have to remember that as the value of Bitcoin goes higher and higher, then those mining rewards are still, very profitable.
Oh, yeah.
Like just because they're getting less and less doesn't mean that their profit and their incentive to do so diminishes. And I think that's something that people don't understand. And then they say, well, the last block will be mined at like 2160 or something like that on the
I think it's
schedule.
2140.
2140, yeah. And they're like, well, what incentive will miners have to mine Bitcoin blocks from that point forward? Well, the answer, and we already see it, is like the component of the reward to the fee revenue will be completely fee.
Yeah.
And and this is also presuming that it's going to be a vibrant, store of value and transactional medium going into well into the future. That won't happen in our lifetime unless we get like, our cloning and transferring to new bodies and stuff happens, but I'm not banking on that one.
Don't die. We got to live
Yeah.
for a long time, hopefully. Bitcoin
Yeah.
incentivizes that, you're going to be wealthy,
There you go.
extremely wealthy.
There you go.
You want to live.
There you go. Well, I mean, the with like you mentioned, the sailor buy is a constant drain as well. You got to, and I'm starting to see this more and more as well, that the Bitcoin community, I mentioned precious metals, but they've like claimed for decades that there's been manipulation in the market. In fact, JP Morgan's metals desk traders were caught and imprisoned for manipulating the market, and huge fine paid by JP Morgan. They just sloughed it off as cost of doing business. But what's interesting is like how Bitcoiners are starting to say, well, wait a second, is there a possibility that there's some manipulation of the market, price in the market? It's like, how does this work? Can you have paper Bitcoin? Can you have derivative Bitcoin that's now influencing the price? And I think you can't deny that there is some influence. It may be difficult to quantify, but
Right.
yeah, it's just like it's becoming like everything else in certain ways. So anyway.
Which is why it just points back to self-custody. Self-custody is extremely important. All this paper Bitcoin is digital vaporware Bitcoin. You could have endless derivatives, but self-custody stops that. 21 million Bitcoin,
That's right.
you got to self-custody it.
That's right. That's right.